G'day, just going to dig some lily bulbs. These are seedlings, 2 years old, been in this box for 2 years, so I normally grow them 2 years. It's a good compromise getting them to a good size, and much easier to look after in a box. The reason I usually plant them in these, I just buy these storage boxes. The reason I use those is they're quite deep. There's plenty of room for roots and much easier to control weeds in these. I usually, for lilies, half fill it with compost just from the garden compost heap, and then I'll use commercial potting mix for the top half. These have sunk down over the course of 2 years. It's compacted, but normally I'd fill that at planting time right to the top. And for lilies I use seed raising mix on top of the seeds, which is quite fine and easy for them to germinate through. So what I've got here, these, like I say, these have had 2 growing seasons, so the bulbs should be a reasonable size. I've got some here that I dug yesterday just to give an example of size. These are, that one's an oriental trumpet, an OT crossed with a tetraploid trumpet. So you usually get quite a wide variety of sized bulbs in the trumpets. I mean the lilies, there's 2 the same age there. So the problem with digging lily bulbs is the root systems get quite large, and they'll all interlock together, so you end up with a mat of roots, and it usually just comes out as a big slab, and then you've got to try and separate them out without ripping too many roots off or damaging the bulbs. The scales are, it's quite easy to snap the scales off the bulbs, which you want to avoid doing. So when I plant these, you see I've got some labels here. I'll normally try and alternate between the different types of lilies, so I'll alternate trumpets, Asiatics, and because the bulbs are quite different to look at, so you can't get them mixed up. The trumpets, usually yellow, purpley like that, quite dark. Asiatics, usually white, and you'll see in a sec when I start pulling these up what they look like. These are usually quite tricky to get started without breaking them. Let's see how I go. So there's some coming up there, not too big for 2 years. These are Northern Carillion crossed with a tetraploid white trumpet according to my label. So Northern Carillion being a cross between an oriental and a trumpet. They're a really large, vigorous cultivar. I've been trying to grow a lot more OT seedlings because I just happen to like them. They're big plants with nice scent and lots of interesting different colours, so I'm trying to grow more seedlings of them. But they do take a lot longer to flower, so there's a 2-year-old bulb there. If I keep digging, so the other thing you'll find is the bigger bulbs tend to be deeper. They pull themselves down over time and they really get stuck in there with the roots. So there's a bigger one. So you see that there's quite a good size for 2 years, and that will almost certainly flower next year. So that's an OT, or otherwise known as an Orienpet, crossed with a tetraploid trumpet. Tetraploid having double the number of chromosomes as the usual diploid. If you want to learn more about that, you can go Google it, but suffice to say, if you're crossing with the OTs, you need to use a tetraploid parent, otherwise you won't get any seeds. So the tetraploids are a bigger, more vigorous or more robust plant, but they do take longer to grow from seed to a flowering size. So that there will definitely flower next year. So keep going here. So what I'll do is, as I go, I'll normally grab a pot and just put the bulbs in it as I go with their label. So here's what I mean about planting alternating. You can see there I've got a Trumpet or Orienpet bulb and a Asiatic bulb side by side. They're quite different. So there's another couple there, they're quite a good size. You find too with these there's quite a lot of variation in the even in the colour of the bulbs. Some of them are lighter, some of them are darker. And then you'll get the odd one like these that are tiny little runty ones. There's another one there, a little runty one. You know, whether it's worth planting them or not, don't know. Another good sized bulb there, and you can see the extent of the roots. They really do extend quite a long way for quite a small bulb. So that's pretty much that entire lot of seeds. So that's what I've got there. So what I'll normally do, I normally try and plant them pretty soon, but what I'll do is just in the interim I'll just cover them up with a bit of dirt to keep them moist until I'm ready to plant them. So I'll just put that aside for now and grab another pot, start on the next row. So this is midwinter here, it's start of June, so almost the shortest day in the southern hemisphere. So these are well and truly died down, or the majority of them. There's one stray leaf there, not sure why that one's still going, but you'll get, there's quite a large variation in the time as to when they die down. Some die down quite early, others a bit later. So here we go, these are Asiatics. So they're always white, and they're a bit more vigorous usually than the Trumpets. Quite a few coming up there. These are actually, what's it say? These are from tetraploids as well. There's one there that's got a bit of damage on it. Something's been eating it. The other thing with lilies is you actually get quite a few losses along the way. Don't really know why. Some of them just don't thrive. So you might get a lot of seed germinate, but you might only dig, I might only get 10 bulbs out of here. And again, some of these are really small, so whether it's worth planting those little ones out, I don't know, but I'll probably chuck them in the ground. So not really a lot out of that particular cross, but I'll plant the bigger ones. So that says it's an upright tetraploid Asiatic yellow crossed with a brushstroke seedling, so interesting to see what comes out of that. So my next row here is another Northern Carillion crossed with Trumpet. So So should be back to, if I get another pot, should be back to yellowy, purpley bulbs here. Oops, so there you go. See, broken a scale off there, just being rough, so I'm not trying to avoid that. Lots of little bulbs coming out of this one. You can see, if you get a few big bulbs in there, they form a real mat, and you can see the roots there mean there's a large bulb in there somewhere. Good healthy root systems in these. So these are quite a different colour to that other cross. These are a lot more bright yellow. Quite a few little bulbs coming up. Chuck the label in there. This one there with still a leaf attached. Here, lilies. So no real monster bulbs coming out of that lot, but yeah, some of those large ones might flower next year. Maybe they'll be another year. So those are 2 years old. As to whether I'll plant them out in the open garden or put them back in a box, not sure at this stage. So have a good poke around in there. Don't see any others. So on to the next row. So back to Asiatics now. Should be white bulbs. You can see these have formed a real, yeah, there's a lot of really small bulbs in here. The odd big one. So these ones might be a good candidate to put back in the box, because if you plant them out in the main garden, they're inclined to just disappear. They'll get buried by weeds. So there you go, that's how I dig my seedling lilies, and yeah, hope that helps.